Good morning and welcome to Madeira. My name is Caroline and the guy behind me is my other half Andy, and he right now is in his element. When I told him that we were coming to Madeira for 2 weeks, I just double checked that he was okay with it. He said, yeah, it's fine, go ahead and book it. And I said to him, is there anything in particular on the island that you'd really like to do? And he said to me, Fanal Forest. So this morning we've come along to Fanal Forest, which is a very, very cloudy and misty part of the island with these really epic, gnarly trees. Hopefully this afternoon we will then go on a Levada walk that's really close to here. A few things to note about this place. We are here right at the very end of July, so I don't think it matters when you come, it's going to be cold. And so my poor choice of shorts maybe wasn't the best of ideas, but I have at least got this fleece and then I've got a rain mac as well for an extra layer or two, but I just wish that I'd put on trousers. So if you're planning on coming here, I would definitely bring layers because it is very, very chilly. The other thing was that we came here fasting in the morning in our hopes that we would be able to escape the crowds. But actually the irony is I can hear other people who are in here because there's someone, I think, with a younger child who is, babbling away. But you just can't see them because of how thick the fog is. So I think so long as you come on a foggy day, which is like the whole point of coming along to this forest, I think if there's a lot of people here, it's probably not going to be too problematic just because of the amount of fog blocking other people. When you walk underneath the trees, it sounds like it's raining, and it's because of the amount of water that's getting collected on the leaves. It gets to a point where the leaf can't hold anymore, and it's just dripping. And that means that the ground underneath the trees is sopping wet. But as soon as you walk away from being underneath the tree canopy, suddenly the ground is, I wouldn't say like super dry, but you can't feel it squelching underneath your feet. It's a really, really weird ecosystem that we're in right now. The rain mac has needed to come out wet and windy and cold. Is not the best of combinations, but when I put on my rain mac and I went to go put my hands in my pockets, bonus, I had gloves in there that I didn't realise, so I might only be in shorts, but I do at least have gloves. The other thing that's going on at the moment is I can hear way back down the hill here someone just yelling, and my guess is that they've lost a member of their party. And this is something that quite quickly I realised I need to stay really, really close to Andy, because you only have to go a few metres and then once they're into the fog you can't see where they are. And I guess it's one thing to start yelling for members of your party, but Andy is incredibly hard of hearing, wears hearing aids in both ears, and I know that if I yell for him, he is not going to hear me. So I'm just needing to stay as close as possible to him and making sure that he's always in eyesight, because if I lose him, I really don't know how we're going to be able to find one another again. We've wandered down the hillside away from the trees and we're in a very grassy terrain with a lot of cowpat, a few rocks and some ferns, but nothing of any significance. And if I was just to do a quick pan of everything that's completely around me, it might give you a bit of an idea as to the whole concept of how disorientating this whole place can be and how easy it is to be able to get lost from members of your party. We were forced through, I suppose, like a fence. There seemed to be something of a very light pathway, so we've been quite clever in going over to that, and we're following that down so that we know we can follow that straight back. And the other thing that we've quite helpfully done is we've dropped a pin using Google Maps of where we've parked the car, so we can at least use GPS to be able to help us get back to where we've parked so that we don't become completely lost. That open moorland has pushed us down onto some more trees, and there's quite a few that are completely broken, and I guess that the gale winds get so bad that they've been able to snap the really mature trees that aren't able to bend quite as much in the wind. There's also a small pond, and there seems to be a track which we're assuming 4x4 vehicles can drive down. We do wonder if this might be an alternative route back up to where we parked the car. I knew that there were cattle up here on the plateau, one because I'd read about it, but two because of the amount of cowpat that was all over the ground. I was hoping that I'd get to see some, but I wasn't holding my breath just because trying to see anything through all of this fog and mist is quite difficult. But we've got really lucky as we're coming back up the hill, we've come across a bunch of them just grazing on the grass. This is one of just a few parts of Madeira Island where you will find animals freely roaming around, because for most of the island the slopes are so steep it would just be too dangerous for the animals. The clouds certainly thinning out. There's a moment where we saw a teeny tiny bit of blue sky and the sun's desperately trying to burn through it, but what it means is it's just been a little bit easier to spot some of the other trees that we were hoping to come across. There's one that's called the cheerleader, and it really does look like a cheerleader with a couple of pom-poms for all of the leaves on the branches. And ironically, it was super close to one that we'd spent so much time close to when we first arrived this morning, of a tree that kind of looks like it's telling someone a story. The cows were right next to that as well, and we completely missed the cows, we completely missed the cheerleader. So it does help a little bit when the fog starts to disperse just a little. It's clearing up and you can start to see everything. It's like there's absolutely no fog whatsoever where those trees are. You just spin it around, you can see it still rolling in off of the hills. Whoa, this is crazy. Like, you just had no idea that there was this much of like the mounds and the rolling hills, and I bet the fog rolls in like just a moment. This is really cool. This is crazy. It's like completely clearing up again and you can just see the mountains, but I'm trying to go further up on the hill to get a better view of them. I did not expect to have this kind of view in Fernell Forest. No, and it's kind of clouded over again.
So we just finished up at Fernell Forest. I guess the best conditions for woodland photography is very much fog, and that's because then the trees kind of separate a little bit, and we had loads of that this morning. It was amazing. I watch a lot of YouTube photographers and they all come to this location and get some of their best shots, so it was awesome to be able to come and replicate some of the shots they've done and also come up with some new ones. Some tips for coming here is warm weather clothing, rain mac and a cloth to wipe off any lens as you take photos or videos.
When we arrived this morning, it was so cold at about 8:30 in the morning and the cloud was so thick, it was just so wet, like the moisture from the cloud was just clinging onto everything. And I could see these picnic benches and I could see people who'd pitched tents at like a little campground, and I thought, oh, this is not where I would want to have a picnic lunch, it's not where I'd want to be camping. But actually, as the clouds have started to thin out and the sun's come out, it's actually really quite pleasant, and I wouldn't mind camping here, and I definitely wouldn't mind eating a picnic lunch here, which is exactly what we're going to do. My shoes are very wet to the point whereby my socks have also gotten a little bit on the wet side, so I'm just sort of sticking my feet out into the sun in the hopes that whilst we eat lunch they will dry out. Because the sun's come out, I'm needing to put on some sunscreen on any bits of skin that are exposed to the sun at the moment, and then we'll eat some lunch. Cheers.
That's raining. Just look at.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Yeah.